Hello everyone, this is Warhawk Beyond 2040 and welcome to the third and final part of my theory on how I would introduce Brainiac. And as I mentioned at the very beginning that I was going to do a 3-part theory video focusing on 3 different scenarios on how I would introduce Brainiac into a Superman movie / Superman TV show. So for part 1 we had my theory on how I would have introduced Brainiac into Superman 3, and for part 2 we had my theory on how I would introduce Brainiac into the Arrowverse, and for the third and final part I am going to be talking about my theory on how I would introduce Brainiac into the DCEU for a Man of Steel sequel. So I would have the Man of Steel sequel take place some months after the Zack Snyder cut of the Justice League, so this will take place just after Superman has been resurrected. And what I would have is General Zod's ship was operated by Brainiac's computer systems. So after his ship got destroyed and crash landed, I would have Brainiac reboot himself, and obviously he doesn't have a physical form as of yet. He would take on a default human form of Dr. Milton Fine, so that would be an homage to Smallville and him taking on his human form of the Magician from the comic books. So I would have Brainiac as Dr. Milton Fine. He's going around getting pieces of information and he's trying to basically reboot his own form while he's under the disguise of Dr. Milton Fine. So by this point Superman has already built the Fortress of Solitude and he's back on the scene, he's the hero. I would still have Superman in the black suit because, you know, as we all remember, anybody who's read the old comic books, the black suit was kind of like a solar power suit where he absorbed the yellow sun and was able to recharge himself. So Superman is still wearing the black suit by this point, and Brainiac would somehow find the Fortress of Solitude and he would drain all of the Kryptonian technology in the fortress, and he is able to reboot himself and take on his proper form that we all know. Now, before all of this happens, obviously I would have Dr. Milton Fine befriend Superman, but Superman of course is very resistant to trust this Milton Fine person, and he invites him into the fortress, and that's where he is tricked and takes out Superman with kryptonite, and he basically reveals himself to be Brainiac. So what you could also have is, as a result of General Zod's influence, and obviously Brainiac being Zod's computer systems, Zod would have corrupted Brainiac's computer systems. So I would have the idea that Brainiac was originally created by Jor-El, because I've always liked the idea that Jor-El was smart enough to create basically the Kryptonian World Wide Web / internet system, and General Zod, very similar to what happened in Smallville, but instead of General Zod corrupting the Brainiac systems for evil, he would corrupt him to basically use him for his ends, so to speak. So Brainiac isn't really corrupted by evil in the traditional sense. He's a computer gone wrong, so he's just doing what he's programmed to do. And I would also have Brainiac has stolen the city of Kandor, which is an important part of the Brainiac story arc, and Superman is basically on a mission to stop Brainiac from not only trying to recreate a new Krypton Earth, which is one of the many aborted storylines that was going to be used for a Superman movie, but he would also be on the mission to try and get Kandor back. So he's trying to stop Brainiac, but he's also trying to save Kandor. But he's at the same time got to make a choice. Which is more important, saving the city of Kandor and the people inside, or stopping Brainiac from basically taking over the entire planet's computer systems? And what you could also have is, after Brainiac has corrupted the fortress, similar to what happened in Smallville, he would start creating an army of Brainiacs. So he would basically just start making copies and just plant them all around the world, and Superman has to go on a mission to basically stop every single Brainiac from destroying each country's computer systems. So that would be my take on how I would introduce Brainiac into a Man of Steel sequel. And also I would have, for the first half, while Brainiac is trying to put together his own body, I would have him in the tube, kind of similar to what we saw in Superman Unbound, and then he could emerge as Dr. Milton Fine and then go about his business and do what he does. So that would be my theory on how I would introduce Brainiac into a Man of Steel sequel. And also, I think for the Man of Steel sequel, I would also have him set up to be a main villain for a future Justice League movie. So obviously, if we do get a Justice League sequel to the Snyder Cut, that could focus on the Nightmare stuff, so trying to rewrite the wrongs of what had happened. So maybe Brainiac could be the third main villain for the third installment. So he wouldn't necessarily be the main villain, because obviously you've got to have Darkseid. So maybe Brainiac could be the second main villain, or maybe he could work with Darkseid like they did in the DCEU. So I would have him appear in the third one. Maybe he could fuse with Darkseid or something like that. But that would be my take on how I would introduce Brainiac. So I would have him appear in the second installment of the Man of Steel as the main villain, and then the next time we see him, he could be the main villain alongside Darkseid for the third installment of the Justice League, which is continuing on from the Snyder Cut. So there you have it, guys. That's pretty much my theory on how I would introduce Brainiac into the DCEU. I hope you've enjoyed listening to me coming up with these different scenarios on how I would introduce Brainiac into Superman 3, the Arrowverse, and of course the DCEU. Because, you know, as I said when I started this, that Brainiac to me is one of the best, if not the best, Superman villain of the Rogues Gallery. He deserves more love, and I think we can all agree that Brainiac needs to be in a Superman movie, because he's taken a backseat to Lex Luthor for so many years, and it's time to change that. And I think if Brainiac is introduced into the DCEU with the right story and a good script, I think it could really work in a big way. So, how would you introduce Brainiac into the DCEU? Would you do it this way, or would you do it a different way? Do you like the idea of Brainiac possibly being corrupted by General Zod? Or would you have him not be from Krypton? Would you just keep him as a being from the planet Cthulhu? You know what to do, guys. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, leave your thoughts and comments down below, and I will see all of you next time. So once again, thanks for listening, and take care, and stay safe.